Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. I'd first like to start by acknowledging that we're meeting today on the lands of the Whyalla people, and we ask you to respect the lands past, present, and extending as the Whyalla people have done as who are present today. Thank you. Next, we have our prayer. So, Almighty God, we humbly beseech thee to grant thy blessing upon the works of this council, to direct and prosper its deliberations to the advancement of the city and for the true and lasting welfare of the people of this municipality. Could I please ask everyone to stand, for those who can, for the obituaries? Once I've finished reading the names, I'd like everyone to stand for a further minute, please. Jean Rigg, Greg Ulrich, Priscilla Antonio, Andrew Boothie, Margaret Neely, Rosemary Glody, Glenys White, Maureen Stone, Maria Clayson, Erwin Ernest. Thank you. Thank you. Please be seated. Attendance records. We have one apology from Mayor Stone. Leave of absence, we have nil. Conflicts of interest. Can any councillors or managers please declare any conflicts? I have one. 13.3.2, Christmas on the Avenue. I'm actually the event organiser for Carols in the Park. So I will be leaving the room for that item. Any others? Councillor Westerman?
Yeah, conflict of interest for item 13.1.2. The report mentions the foreshore hotel development.
Thank you. Any other conflicts? No. Okay, let's proceed. Gifts and benefits. Does anyone have any gifts or benefits to declare? No. Okay. 6.1, confirmation of the previous council minutes. Can I please have someone accept that? Thank you, Councillor Knox, and second, Councillor Border. All in favour? Thank you. Carried. 6.2, confirmation of the minutes for the special meeting on the 11th of September. Can I please have someone accept that? Thank you, Councillor Simpson. Second, Councillor Border. All in favour? Carried. Thank you. Okay, now we have deputations and presentations. I'd like to seek a leave of the meeting procedures at the moment and to bring the GFG presentation to the first presentation, please. Thank you, Councillor Knox. Second, Councillor Todd. Thank you very much. And I'd also like to resolve that we go into confidential under 39.D of the Local Government Act, as this is commercial information of confidential nature. Can I have someone please accept that? Thank you, Councillor Westman. Second, Councillor Campbell. All in favour? Thank you.
finds the gallery now.
So I have to ask the gallery, I'm so sorry, we'll have to get you to leave just for this very first presentation, and then we'll get everybody back in just a minute. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone, for your patience. Now we're going to 7.1 on the agenda, Office of Recreation, Sport and Racing. We have Paul, Sean and Matt to do a presentation. And fellas, I'll just let you know you've got 10 minutes. No.
All right, I think we're good. We'll be very quick here. Thank you for the opportunity to present tonight. I just want to also acknowledge the Whyalla people, the traditional owners of the land we meet on. I was lucky enough to grow up in regional Victoria on what a Wurrung country, and it took me about 22 years to realise the traditional burning we did every year on our farm was related to traditional owners. So I just wanted to acknowledge that up front and say that we're still very lucky and fortunate to be learning of the wisdom of thousands of years on the grounds with which we play sport and participate in recreation. So I wanted to acknowledge that. Connect and Active Communities, and I'm speaking quickly because we've got 10 minutes, is a project that we're rolling out in regional South Australia as the Office of Recreation, Sport and Racing. And it's basically come about because we've got some really abhorrent physical activity rates across the state. This is not unique to South Australia. It's pretty damning across the country. But when you look at age gaps between 5 and 12 years of age, we've only got 24% of kids that are actually meeting physical activity guidelines. That's not structured sport. That's just physically moving every day to an effort that would actually give them some health benefit for general health and fitness. When we get to the teenage years, 13 to 17 years of age, only 8% of teenagers are actually moving enough to have basic physical health needs met. And we've got just less than half of adults are actually meeting that. When we talk about the time for adults, that's 150 minutes of movement a week. So it's not an onerous task, but the stats are pretty scary. That extrapolates out to a pretty scary health outcome when you look at the cost of that down the track, but we won't touch on that tonight. We've got a relatively new government still, which is an opportunity for this project. And it's came about because we had a traditional program that was a bit of a one-size-fits-all model. We had some residual regional funding that was rolling over annually, not a huge budget, but there was some money there. But we had a minister that was really keen to see some change in the regional space. And as a regional boy, I was pretty happy to see that. What we didn't know is the impact of the traditional program. So it was called the Regional Field Officer Program. There was an officer here, Alberto, who's in the back of the room. It shifted mainly because it had existed for about 15 years, but there was no data done at the start of this program to know what was the baseline. So what was the impact over 15 years? And I guess as an agency, if we asked any community, are you happy that there's a resource in your community working with sport and rec? They'd say yes, I certainly would, but it was very hard to measure. We also didn't know what communities saw as barriers to that participation. We also didn't know what they saw as assets or benefits to that. And then as a result, we didn't know what could actually be done. So the main part of this program is it's a consultative process where we go out to community and try and speak to as many user groups or participants as we can. Some are in this room, from commercial operators to tourism providers to social services to traditional sport, as many people as we can to get a really good subset of impact and opinion across the community. What we did know is that community are the experts in their own lives. As I say, I'm from regional Victoria, the boys here from Metropolitan Adelaide. We know that the community are experts in their own lives and that we can't broadcast and impart our knowledge on Whyalla, assuming that what we know is going to work here. So the best thing we can do is talk to community to actually get outcomes for that community. We know that commitment counts. This program's a minimum 3 years will be in Whyalla. We've pitched this to Minister for an 8-year plus legacy program, but we've got 3 years of dollars at the moment. So we'll be honest and upfront with that. We don't want to come in for 12 months. We want 3 years. We're hoping to get some behaviour shift there. We know that if communities' ideas are reflected in planning and programs, that there's a greater buy-in to that. So again, we're not being dictatorial with this. We've spent 3 days in initial community consultation. We spent sort of 3-4 hours in that room today. We'll spend a similar amount of time tomorrow to co-design what this actually looks like for Whyalla. And we acknowledge that plans will change. So this is not a traditional government program where we go, this runs for 3 years, tell us at the end of it whether you succeeded or failed, and then we'll just move on and do something else. This is a genuine partnership between our office. So we'll have an internal resource that will constantly be in touch with the person in Whyalla to essentially go, are the initiatives we've co-designed still working? If you're putting time into something and it's not working, do we need to shift the outcomes or the intent of what this program looks like? We know we need to harness enthusiasm, and when I talk to that, we're actually looking at getting some quick wins because we've already had approaches from Cabinet to go, can you come back to us within the next 6 to 12 months about what does a scalable model of this look like? So I'll touch on the dollars really quickly in a moment, but essentially we're looking at how do we get more money into regions for a longer period of time so we can actually talk to sustained change, because we know all too often a program comes out, it's a quick drop of money, you might get a small uptick and then that money runs out or government shifts and it all just dissipates and the cycle continues. I won't talk a lot to the tension that is with this program, but you can appreciate it's a bit of a different model in terms of engagement for government. We've done all this up front before we've signed any agreements. So there's a bit of a risk from an agency point of view on a dollars and cents. There's time and effort put into co-design before we finalise anything, but to navigate a government model that wants contracts signed and things like that first, it's been a fun one to navigate for us, but it also makes it a bit exciting, which is good. In terms of the design, essentially we've ended up with 4 pilot locations. So we're here, we're in Port Lincoln, we're in Mount Gambier, we're in the Riverland. Port Lincoln and Mount Gambier started sort of 6 months ago, so we've already got people on the ground there. And then this is part 2. So we're here, and then Riverland will get finalised after this as well. Interestingly, there's different things that have come up in each region, so that really reinforces that this place-based model of looking at the strengths of community, it's not a deficit model where we're going, what's broken, here's some money and fix it. It's what's good in your community that if we invest in more in terms of time, effort, resources, what will actually get an uptick in participation or more connection across communities. It's a 3-year commitment, which I've touched on. It's $125,000 a year at the moment. We know that's not a lot of money. Essentially, we've got $500,000 a year that's been allocated for regions for a 3-year period. That's an ongoing commitment that's just sat within our budget. Our challenge now is to use this Connected and Active Communities project to show value in that, with the intention of going back to Cabinet to go, well, if you give us $10 million a year over 10 years, we can do this in 10 regions and actually have teams that are employed locally for local intervention. So that's the altruistic kind of long-term goal of what this looks like. Very quick, I'll pass on to Sean for the detail. It's kind of like the Three Stooges.
And if we go for time, just like give me the signal. All right, so basically, in terms of the project, there's sort of 5 key stages, I guess, of what this looks like. So we started, as Paul mentioned, we came out and did regional engagement sessions. We tried to meet with as many different people across the community as we could. In 3 days, we did not limit it just to sport, because this isn't just about kicking, catching and running. It's about the communities that sort of wrap around sport that we know are very important to regional communities and communities in general. So we wanted to talk to everyone that had a stakeholdership in that. We obviously, 3 days, there's a limitation there in terms of being able to talk to all the different voices within the community, but we tried to capture as much as we could. There was 30 odd meetings and about 800 data points that came out of that. Second after that, so we've been working on developing a strength report. So the idea about this project is that regional communities, how do I frame this? If government views regions as broken and we're going to be the ones to fix it, we'll just annoy everybody. This is about realizing that regional communities have incredible strengths, and what we want to do is build on those strengths. So instead of a deficit model, it's an asset model. So what we've done is, based on all the things we've heard, all the strengths and all the opportunities and all the excitement within the community, develop a strength report, and we're working with the council at the moment in terms of solidifying that. Based on the strength report, we've gone into a process of co-designing initiatives. So based on all these strengths that we found, all the different, and Matt will go into that in a second, we sort of identify, we're in the process of nailing it down to 4, 5, 6, 7 initiatives that can be run at, and then working with the council then to go, well, how do you want to run it? Do you want to do grants? Do you want to bring in a resource, all that different stuff like that, working through that co-design process. So that's number 4, the activation funding. How do we get the dollars to achieve those initiatives? And then 5 is that continuous learning. So we've got an evaluative process that's attached to this program. Normally when we hear evaluation, we think it's, if you don't hit the mark, you'll get slapped across the wrist. this is about continual learning. And as Paul said before, if things work, let's elevate, and if things don't work, let's pivot. And being a partner all through the process. It's not just here's the money, we'll see you in 3 years, tell us if you kick goals or not. It's about working through all that as we go. I love this, right? This is sort of the key thing, I guess, for me with this program. That is, we're not just trying to make sporty kids sportier. So yes, we want to help grow the sporting ecosystem as much as possible. And yes, we want to make sure that all the kids in Whyalla or in any regional town have an ability to thrive in their sport. But this is also about reaching some of the people that fall beyond the periphery. We're not going to shift that needle that Paul showed earlier if the kids that are already moving move more. We want to make sure the kids who either don't feel like they want to participate, and not just kids, this is everybody. Everyone in the room can reflect on their own physical activity at the moment and figure out where they feel in that graph. But the basically who faces barriers to participation or who feels like they don't want to be active, and how do we find initiatives to run at that? To that point, we met with everybody that we could within the community, wide-ranging stakeholders to get their views on what the strengths are, what the opportunities are, noting that traditional sport does play a role, but so do social services, so do businesses, so do organisations, so do NDIS groups, so do the pubs, so do everybody. So finding unique ways to reach the people at the end of that bell curve. This is really key. Every region is different. So this is what we call a place-based approach. And Paul and I presented this program at the National Sports Conference a couple of months ago. And it's really where a lot of governments are looking to go, and we're one of the first in the country to have a run at this. It's a place-based approach because it recognises the unique sort of structure of each regional town. So Whyalla is massively different to Mount Gambier, and it's got different strengths to Port Lincoln and different strengths to the Riverland. A good example on that is in when we did the first couple of pilots, there was one region where footy clubs were seen as this avenue for class mobility. So it was a place where kids who were in guardianship of the minister could come, and if they were doing well in sport, if they were connected to that sporting community, if they had that found family, they might get an apprenticeship. It was a way to elevate themselves. Whereas in another community, we were hearing the toxic nature of what was happening in footy clubs, and they were saying, and I always tell the story, they basically, one person said, you know, we were talking about young people in town. He goes, the problem is I can come to the footy club and have 16 beers and talk to the barman. The problem is 16-year-olds don't have that opportunity. So two very different footy club environments, two very different sporting environments. We don't want to have the same initiatives for both. We want to make sure, one, let's have a look at how we can influence, you know, positive culture change, and one, let's see how we can turn what's happening for these young people in the sports club into something positive, and how do we sort of elevate the impact of what's going on there. So same with Whyalla, very different town in a lot of really cool and special ways. Really excited by what we heard. There's obviously, you know, challenges, but every challenge came with it an opportunity as well. So we've been talking to the council today about essentially how to turn that unique, all the unique features of Whyalla and all the unique strengths and opportunities into those initiatives, so we can have an impact and get people active and moving. And that's, I guess, the co-design approach. As Paul said before, if I came to Whyalla and said, I know everything, here's the plan, here's what we're going to do, we would make everyone angry. We know that people in Whyalla are the experts when it comes to what life is like in Whyalla. So the aim is to co-design this with the community, and that's a lot of that consultation process. And even now, when we're talking about the initiatives, talking to Jade and Alberto and the council earlier today, just constantly going, what does this look like for you? Does this fit? Does this work? What do you see the opportunities as? Noting that there are people, as I said, in the community that have that lived expertise that we just simply don't have. So we want to make sure that expertise is driving our policy. I'm going to hand over to Matt, who's going to talk a little bit about the strengths.
Just before we hand over, we are actually out of time. Elected members, are you happy to go another 5 minutes just to listen to Matt, and that'll cover questions as well?
Well, good. I'll be 2 minutes, I promise. So I'm not expecting to tell you anything here that you don't know, and there's probably about 50 strengths. We tried to condense it into 7 themes. So the first one being community connection and social impact. There's so many great community organisations in this town that value sport and recreation. So we're going to try and work with them to connect people that need it most to sport and recreation opportunities. Space activation. There's a lot of vacant, unused space here, whether it be sporting ovals or natural assets. So we're looking, what can we do to activate them? Industry, business and education. There's, I think, a big business in this town supports sport and recreation, and they recognise the need to be seen to be supporting sport and recreation. Then there's the people. There's just so many people in this community who they're champions in the community. They're getting things done. They're getting things started. They're pioneers. They're champions. So we want to tap into that and bring them up to the next level. Traditional sport. Whyalla is an incredibly sporty town with incredibly talented people. So we'd be crazy not to tap into that. Transport, probably not a strength, but definitely a thing that whether it's within Whyalla or getting to the big centres to further your sporting career, transport's an issue. So that's something we want to try and fix. And then social sport and recreation. There's just a mountain of opportunities in Whyalla for people to, whether it's organised sport or alternate activities. There's just that many opportunities for people to get fit and active. So we want to tap into that also. And I guess the part we're doing today is turning all these strengths and trends into actual projects and initiatives. So once we have them finalised, we'd love to probably share that with you, what that looks like.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Councillors, any questions? Councillor Todd?
I haven't got a question. I've just got a comment. I wish you could have spoken to us for longer because I feel like there's so much more. But yeah, I really feel like you were rushing, which was great. You got all your points across.
People that went to the lobby before got to hear the whole spiel.
I should have went out there. Yeah, that's just a comment. I'm sorry you were so rushed.
That's right. And if you go, feel free to comment.
CEO?
If I can just respond to that, the purpose of tonight's presentation was to sort of provide a bit of an overview of some of the work that's happening and the approach that the Department of Rec and Sport are taking in terms of the Connected Communities program. Importantly, there's I think 2 full days, today and tomorrow. The department staff are working with relevant council staff to pull through the detail. That detail will come back to council, so there will be further presentation to council, and we'll be able to deep dive into that detail at a later stage. Tonight wasn't meant to go fully into that detail, so I just want to assure councillors that whilst tonight felt a little bit like a soft touch, it's just the start of the process, given that the funding arrangements have only really just been put in place and got a 3-year window in front of us. So.
Thank you very much for coming. It was a great presentation and we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you. Okay, 7.3, we have Leslie here from Mission Australia regarding communities focus. Don't let it fall through.
Sorry. Thank you for the time that you're giving me to talk with you tonight. Can I just say that I'm wearing 2 hats? The first hat I'm wearing is my Hope Collective hat, and then I'm switching to my Mission Australia hat. So I'd like to just start by talking about Hope Collective, which started almost 10 years ago, believe it or not, in 2014. And this was what the community came up with and why we came up with the name. So in our community, people wanted to be healthy, they wanted to be optimistic, they wanted to have pride in this community, and they wanted to be empowered. And so that everything that we've done in the last 10 years has been driven by this mantra. I've already gone off track. So we started as a collective impact initiative, and it brought together people from service agencies, government agencies, education, churches, and yourselves, council. Started by holding community events. Oh, sorry, this was our very first meeting at Stuart High School in 2014. Started by holding community events. Most of those were at Norton Park before it got the upgrade, and we used to drag our portable barbecue down there. But there were great opportunities to engage with the community and listen to community and find out what it was that they wanted our community to look like. So a lot of that consultation began to explore, I guess, perception around creating positive change, because a lot of what we were hearing was people didn't feel like they deserved much. People didn't feel like people wanted them. People didn't feel like they had what everybody else had. I'm looking to Tammy because, sorry, Deputy Mayor, because she was part of those conversations. And so was Irene. Long story short, this led to the establishment of a community garden called the Orchard, which you may have heard about. That's up on the corner of Knight Street and Bastion Crescent. And it's currently only open once a week on a Thursday and then every second Wednesday. We'd love to have it open more, but we don't have volunteer capacity. Everything that Hope does is volunteer. Nobody's paid yet to drive this stuff. So we've got volunteers who go in there every week and have made some great community connections, and I'd share those with you later if you'd like to hear some stories. But I'm also exploring opportunities for playgroups, schools, other groups in the community to go in, do one-off events there, one-off activities, but also then engage parents to try and get them to come more regularly. We also established a community hub out of that community consultation, and people wanted a place to gather for a variety of reasons. But one of them was that people didn't always want to go directly to an agency. Some people didn't feel safe to go somewhere where they might be recognised or they'd had bad experience. So we established the hub, which runs currently out of the back of the Baptist Church on Nicholson Avenue, as a safe place where people can come, have a chat, have a great coffee, I tell you now. And then if they wanted it in that conversation, they can be referred to agencies for help and support. We can get agencies to come and meet with people there if that's their preferred option. Moving on from there, about a year and a half ago, Housing SA identified a need for tenants to have access to gardening equipment. Often people have housing inspections coming up, they haven't got the equipment they need, they can't afford to, get a gardener, they can't afford to go and buy a lawnmower. So Housing SA gave us some money to buy some equipment. And then more recently, you may or may not know, you approved another grant and we've trebled the amount of equipment we've got now. Most weeks we're able to support people in that way. But not only do we give them equipment, but they'll often stop, have a coffee, have a chat. You get to hear just a little bit more about life. And so there's other opportunities created by having this stuff. So thank you very much for that money. 4 years ago, we developed a commitment charter. And you may or may not know, council is actually a signatory to that, both the elected members and staff, the admin team. So I've lost a page of my story, so that's a bit of a worry. But anyway, I'll make it up from here. Very recently, like about 6 weeks ago, Hope Collective was approached by Mission Australia, put on my other hat now, about the possibility of exploring communities of focus. So Mission Australia currently has 3 communities of focus in Australia. We potentially will be the 4th, everything crossed. So what that looks like is bringing people from the community together. So not just doing it professionally, like the sport and rec guys were talking about, community consultation, getting the community involved, finding out what the community wants, and then helping them to achieve those goals. So this isn't somebody coming in to give us another program. It's not a program at all. But it's about bringing people together to work on the things that the community identifies. I firmly believe that if we work together, we can create positive change. We've seen it in the last 10 years. This could take it to a whole new level. Pretty much says the same thing. This I won't go into terribly much because I'm going to give you a handout shortly, which has got that on the back of it, which will explain it some more. But this is kind of how Mission Australia sees communities of focus operating. So it's very place specific. So just because they've got 3 other places doesn't mean we'll get that. Hope and the community will actually identify what we want in Whyalla. it's not a program, like I said. Brings together not only ideas, but we'll gather evidence. We'll gather data. We'll look at things and see how we've achieved goals. We'll measure those goals, and if they're not working, we'll change them. Sorry, I'll go back to that because that was a really important thing at the back there. Sorry. So really importantly, we're not asking you for money. Mission Australia will fully fund this. The money comes from the Mission Australia board, so there's no government funding in it either. So we're not at the behest of KPIs of government funding. It's purely Mission Australia's board who are committed to working with us as a community for up to 10 years, which is massive. Have you ever had anybody offer you 10 years worth of funding for community engagement and sustainable change? Never. If successful, we'll take it, I guess, through the whole thing. You know, we'll start by community engagement, but we'll develop that into a place where the community, by the end of the time, the community is self-sustaining and adaptive to their own needs and changes. So what would it look like? There'd be a small team that would work alongside of the Hope Collective leadership. So they would be employed by Mission Australia, but they would work for Hope Collective to really do some background work, some day-to-day work that would allow us to achieve the goals the community sets for us in a nutshell. Strong communication, we give feedback. Yeah. So you can get some more information in one of those spaces, which is also on the back of the handout I'll give you. And that's 9 minutes and 26 seconds.
Any
Thank you very
questions for Leslie? Councillor Border?
Just a comment or observation. So the HOPE acronym, healthy, optimistic, pride in the community and empowered. That's from the community.
Yeah,
the
community came up with the whole thing.
Yeah.
So that was from the very first 3 or 4 community consultations we did.
Wonderful. And just so that we can see the full circle. So we've approved a grant fund that trebled your equipment that you can lend out.
Yep.
When they drop the equipment back off and they've mowed their own lawn, how would you describe how they feel?
I had a story last week from a gentleman, and he's probably a good success story, if you like, in that he's really committed to creating a lot of change in his own life. But he was just so thrilled that he could do that. And he said, "Oh, I'll be back in a couple of weeks." And, you know, we were able to share a coffee, and people are just proud that they can take care of their space. And that they don't feel embarrassed when the housing officer comes because it looks good.
Wonderful. And like one last question, how can we help? So you're not asking us for money, but how can we help?
Yeah, so I'm not asking for, sorry, I skipped that because my screen froze. So on the 17th and 18th of October, we're holding a community consultation event, yet to be decided where, but also we'll be holding some stakeholder meetings so that'll be on the Tuesday afternoon most likely, and then on the Wednesday we'll be doing some stakeholder meetings. Love as many of the council to be involved in them as we can, particularly if you come to the community event. If you're having conversations with people, feed back to us what they're saying, because it's really important that we get this submission right. The funding is not guaranteed, so after the community consultation, the powers that be in Mission Australia who are coming to run that stuff, they'll actually write a recommendation to the board based on all of our community consultation. So the more positive support we can get, the more likely we are to win the funding. We're up against another community in New South Wales, down to the final 2.
So if we can show more numbers there, that increases our chances.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yeah, the more support we can show for working together, the better our chances are.
Any other questions? No, I'd just like to say thank you very much, Leslie. And as someone who has been there for the original Hope Collective when we started up, I can definitely attest to the power that this group has coming together, sharing knowledge, and actually connecting with the community to find out what the actual issues are and not just guessing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm averaging
huge
about
leeway.
4 community consultations a week at the moment.
Thank you very
I've got a
much.
handout.
Thank you. And now I'm going to pass over to the CEO, who's actually going to read something out for us all.
Through the acting mayor, we did have a request for one extra deputation or presentation this evening in relation to an agenda item on tonight's agenda regarding the Christmas pageant. Unfortunately, Ford King, the president of the Plaza Business Association, was not able to be here in person or to do the deputation. So Ford has sent through an email which councillors have got on your desk, but for the purpose of the recording and any online viewers, I'm just going to read out the email that we received so that everyone's aware of it. So Ford has indicated that he's unable to attend the council meeting tonight and he would like to request a deputation for the following reasons. Firstly, this is the second time that the Plaza traders have not been informed with the option to speak until the last minute due to lack of communication from council. The only reason I, being Ford, was informed of this proposal was a complaint from the general public. I've had numerous business owners, traders and general public members make complaints and concerns regarding miscommunication of the pageant. It was really disappointing to hear that there was a forum with the council and the Whyalla community regarding relocation. Due to not being notified, I was unable to attend. As the president of the Plaza Business Association, I'm trying to help reassure, encourage and support the Plaza traders with operating their businesses in Whyalla. I attended a meeting with the CEO, Justin, regarding the forum, the collection of Plaza information and the opportunity for the forum to help the process in March. In the discussion, Justin had showed his support and said he would get a council staff member to get the information, in brackets, business names and emails. Since the discussion, I have not heard any communications regarding the matter from Justin or anyone at council. All I've received is information from the general public regarding decisions and forums where it was too late for me and other traders to have a voice and attend. While stated that given the limitations, this is referring to the report on tonight's agenda, while stated that given the limited timeframes and an existing understanding of the requirements of the events team have offered to coordinate the pageant for 2023, should council support this approach. I am concerned that the community of Whyalla and the Plaza traders were not consulted regarding this approach, but yet council have the time and effort to plan this move with SAPOL and the required parties involved to make it happen. In the council agenda, it states that there will be face-to-face discussions with the Main Street traders regarding the matter. Until I was approached by a member of the general public, I was not informed, nor has this occurred. With these situational circumstances and to show support to the traders and the Whyalla community, I request a deputation to allow further discussion to follow the proper protocols and outlines as set by council. I look forward to hearing a response within a timely manner and hope with good communication and support I can be part of this process. And that's from Ford King, President of the Plaza's Business Association.
So we just take that as being presented.
Yep.
Lovely.
You want to bring that item forward now?
Yes. Yes, and due to that, we will bring an item forward, so 13.2.1. I do have a conflict for this item, so I'll be leaving the room. So we will need another councillor to come and sit in this chair for a little bit. How do we go about that?
I suggest David Knox. He's a recent experience. Councillor David Knox, I should say. Okay.
Need to move on
Move on
second.
second.
Yeah, can I just get, so Mark Inglis, you've moved that, another councillor to support. Councillor Peter Border supported, all those in favour? All right, thank you, that's carried. And over to you, David. Come.
So we're going to have some discussion on the matter on.
Yep, so the council's just
Yep,
moved to bring
okay,
that one
yep.
forward, so you're now
All
ready
right.
to take over that
So
one.
we're dealing with item 13.3.2, Christmas on the Avenue, and you have a recommendation. Do we need any discussion, or does someone want to move the recommendation? And there's a fourth part that's been added to it as well, which indicates that we are the caretaker facility of this year's Christmas pageant. The administration undertake a post-event review with key stakeholders, looking at both past year's pageants and the 2023 pageant to help inform the format of future year's pageants. Over to you, Councillor.
Yep, through the mayor, if you want, we could, if you want, have staff just talk to this matter in terms of what's brought us to this point, if you're
Okay,
happy
with
to
that.
do that.
Can I ask a question first?
Yeah.
Where was it brought up earlier? I have no recollection of this ever being discussed at council level.
No, it hasn't, and I think that maybe is a good segue. So with the indulgence of the council, what I'll do is I'll get Jenny and Ryan to just provide a briefing to council in terms of what's brought us to this item on the agenda tonight. I'll hand over to Jenny in the first instance.
Thank you, CEO, and thank you, members. There's a couple of key points that we really do want to highlight. We want to clarify that council is acting in caretaker mode for facilitation of this year's pageant. The reason being that Apex don't have the capacity. We found this out recently, and we've been working over the last couple of weeks towards ensuring that the pageant does go ahead. One of the things to ensure it goes ahead is that we would like to combine the pageant with the carols event, and that will ensure that there is a combined capacity of these two events as a contribution to Whyalla. We are proposing a change in route for this year to enable the pageant to be more accessible due to the central location. Council will also be able to work closely with the organisers of the carols event to deliver an outstanding integrated Christmas experience for the whole community. We do acknowledge that community engagement has not been undertaken prior to this resolution. However, we do wish to add this additional resolution, which is ensuring that council and administration undertake community consultation post the event. In that engagement process post-event, we will engage all key stakeholders, including the city traders, the broader Whyalla community, the people who organise the carols, and all of the relevant people that are identified and involved. And just lastly, one point to note that we have spoken with all emergency services. We've spoken with SAPOL, we've spoken with the fire department, and we've spoken with SA Ambulance to run the idea past them. None of these emergency services have any concerns with the closure of Nicholson Avenue. Thank you.
Voted members. Councillor
I'd
Simpson.
like to make a comment that due to the lifespan of this event, which has been going for 50 or 55 or longer years, I think having a post consultation is putting the cart before the horse. I think we should consult first.
Councillor Inglis.
How long do you propose to shut Nicholson Avenue down for, seeing it's the main thoroughfare through the city?
So it's intended that the road closure will be in place for about 3 to 4 hours, and that's on the advice of SAPOL, SAPOL, and also of our local road closure contractor.
How much in Nicholson are you going to shut for 4 hours?
So On the report that you've received, there's a map that indicates the road closure from Norrie Avenue through to Ekblom, and a little bit further towards the intersection where traffic comes off of the roundabout, heads right into Westlands. And so these council staff, administration, events team went out on site with SAPOL and had a conversation in regards to the direction of the road closure and how we should manage that best, and that was on their advice.
Suspect if you're going to shut it for 4 hours for that much, you're going to get a massive backlash from the community. A massive backlash. So that's just what I would see.
Councillor Todd.
I mean, the potentially the pageant, if we hold it on the same date as the carols, is what, 11 weeks, if my mental maths is right. I don't believe that we've got enough time to consult with the community, come back, have another meeting, rah before, and then still allow council enough time to go ahead and do this. I think at the moment we've got two choices: no pageant, or the option that's being presented by the council staff. No pageant at all, because Apex aren't going to do it, and someone else will have to rearrange the whole thing to hold it at a different time. If it's not going to be held on the same time as carols, or we go with this option for this year only.
So if we can organise it to run down Nichols Avenue, we can't organise it to run down the Main Street.
I'm not saying we can't organise it down the main street. I just think the logistics of staff having to organise a carols in the park as well as everything else, and then expecting them to organise a whole separate event. I think the costs involved in staff time, the 2 lots of road closures, that's just my opinion. I just think that with 11 weeks, I think it's a good option.
Any further comments? Councillor?
Catherine was first. Be sure Catherine was first.
Oh, I can't see your light.
Oh,
it's behind the bottom. Sorry.
behind there.
Wasn't ignoring you, just couldn't see the light.
I myself have received several phone calls today about this matter and people being upset. Not necessarily city traders either. I think that coming into this council coming in, one of the main things that we were focusing on was transparency and community consultation. And although I see why it's being done this way and I understand the spirit, I think giving the community an opportunity to understand exactly why and how, and having feel like they've got some ownership and some say on it could be the difference between backlash or encompassing the idea. I think there needs to be, we need to find, if we found a way to organise it in the last couple of weeks on that short notice, I think we can make the time to have at least a meeting, maybe a special meeting where people can come and have a say in a week's time, maybe next week. Just give them 1 week to come and have a say, because I just think that's so incredibly important for something that's been running my entire life, and I'm 45 years old, and there's people older than me that remember it being in the main street. It feels like their pageant, and they're going to feel like they're getting railroaded, and I think it's going to have something that has potential to have a bad taste when it probably couldn't. So I think that's something we should consider. It's why people of Whyalla's pageant, and they need to be involved in the decision.
Councillor Border.
I'm a little bit of column A and column B on this one, because I initially loved the idea of combining the two. I just think that it flows really nicely. And in reading the report, I just felt like what Councillor Todd's comments were of no pageant because Apex can't run it, we're under time pressure. There's also a very close event, Carols in the Park. So it kind of feels like there's 2 points of a challenge that we're facing. Who's going to organise it if Apex aren't? And who's going to organise it in time for these events to take place? So I'm seeing it that way as well. If there was any opportunity, or can we create an opportunity to put something to the community so that they still have ownership over it, and obviously what Ford is saying, what Councillor Simpson and Councillor Campbell have mentioned as well, I think are really critical components as well. So that messaging to the community, we're not just hijacking this and taking it away from you and we're doing it ourselves, which is certainly not how I personally perceive it. But if that's the perception of the community, then I think that really needs to be addressed proactively as well. So yeah, they're just the points that I would like to comment on. But the concept, I think, really does have merit. The challenge that I would have as a person with a lot of kids is the length of time of the event, even from 4 till 9. That's still a long time. But I guess yeah, that's up to each individual parent. So just wanted to leave those things with you.
Sorry?
I think there are, as Councillor Borges indicated, I think there are multiple issues here, and I think we just probably need to unpack those. One is whether we want a pageant event or not. I think most people would say yes. The second thing is who's going to organise that event. We've come forward to say, in the absence of someone else running an event, we believe we could run an event if we coincide with another event that's already existing. If council don't want to go down that path, I would be saying that council is not in a position to host a pageant event. So there, unless someone else comes forward, there will be no event. I think there's been good agreement and discussion around the need to consult, engage and discuss with the community. And we're very happy to do that. It's a bit of the chicken and egg. Do we consult about the possibility of relocating or changing the pageant and then bring a report to council, only for council to potentially not be supportive or vice versa? It's chicken and egg, 6 of one, half a dozen the other. What we do know, however, is that we don't have a lot of time. If we want a pageant, we need to make a decision reasonably soon. So an option for council to consider tonight, if you just wanted us to do some more engagement with the community, and that's engagement in terms of providing the rationale and explanation of what's brought us to here and what the options are. Very elegantly put by Councillor Todd, thank you, mental blank. Before, essentially, pageant or no pageant is the scenario that we're running against. We can provide that window of opportunity, but it has to be a short window. We'd be looking to bring back, have a special meeting of council, probably in a week's time. If the council wanted us to have further conversation before making that decision. We don't have 2, 3, 4 weeks though before we make that decision, because all of the logistics need to be put in place. To that point, in terms of the logistics, essentially using an accountant's term, we're using the economies of scale and leveraging an already existing event and being able to say, how can we build on that event to include something that we know the community loves, which is the pageant. If we don't leverage that and we don't get the economies of scale, we are doing everything twice over. Every stall holder, every mobile food vendor, every permit, every consultation with SAPOL regarding closures, everything gets doubled up. We believe with the existing resources, we've got capacity to deliver an event on that on the day if it coincides with the carols. If council says not supportive of that approach, which is what's been put in front of you, we're essentially asking council to endorse that that's the approach we take. The alternative is that we won't be in a position to for council to facilitate or coordinate an event.
I personally think we need to commend the staff for running with it, because otherwise we wouldn't have a pageant. And I can understand their point of view as well. They're trying to do it as easily as possible. And I also think that giving the opportunity to have it out west potentially could bring a lot more people to the pageant as well who don't have transport. And there are a lot of people, particularly in Whyalla Stewart, who do not have access to motor vehicles. And we know they don't use buses to get to events as well, because we've tried that over the years. So I think as a one-off, it's worth doing. And then we analyse after the event how it went. We go back and talk to the plaza traders, see what their level of involvement might be for future pageants, etc. But I think we need to move forward with this one. If we've got to have a meeting, and we need to do it very, very quickly, because as Councillor Todd has said, with her mathematics, is about 9 weeks to go. So what's your pleasure? We've got a resolution in front of us.
I just think that you've got to, we probably need to socialise it. I think it's not a bad idea, but if you don't socialise it very quickly and tell people, give them just an overview, where, why and how, it's going to blow up, I reckon. But if you say to people, this is what we're doing, if we don't do it this way, there's not going to be a pageant, and you explain to people what you're going to do, you're going to shut the road, you're going to do yada yada, people will suck it up. And then the traders, obviously, that's another whole mess to be sorted out because they probably feel like, we're shifting out their high school, we're banning them, and now we take the patient out of the main street. We're really leaving them. So Justin's going to have to get his best diplomatic skills on to sort that out. But yeah, I just think if you socialise it, just tell them how it is, straight up front. This is what it is. This is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. Sure, you're going to get, but I think that just allows people to think, oh, okay. But if you just spring it on and say, hey, guess what we're doing, that's going to be a whole different reaction, I think.
I think there's one other matter that needs to be addressed as well. And from what I'm hearing, it doesn't sound as though there's been the forum that was where the plaza traders say a forum with council and the Whyalla community. And I think there was such a thing, was there?
Through the mayor, the information that come through from the traders does cross over between the subject of the pageant and the separate matter but related, which is council's relocation from this building to the Edward John Eyre. We did send letters out to all of the tenants and the owners of all the traders regarding the forum that we hosted in this chamber. We actually got quite a good number of people attending, but obviously Ford unfortunately mustn't have received his letter in time in order for him to attend. But I think that's a separate matter. But we note that communications needs to provide people more time to be able to respond.
Meeting rules as put forward recently by our mayor, who's not here tonight, state that people get a chance to speak once. Given that this is an important matter for our community, I will allow a little bit more. So, Councillor Porter, you're next.
Just to bulk up the key messages that was in the report, that the change of ownership, from what we're discussing, to make sure that is front and centre, the change of pageant route, given what Ford has said and what we're thinking the community may say, absolutely bulking up the reasoning and the benefits, the trial, the fact that necessity is the mother of all invention, and maybe this is the best thing that could have ever happened because it brings the two events together. And as the report noted, and as I've experienced, that the after pageant fair doesn't seem to be holding the same amount of fun that it used to for whatever reasons. So those are the key points that I would be really putting front and centre for the Councillor Inglis's comments as well.
Councillor Todd.
I'd like to move the
Move the resolution?
Yep.
1 to 4?
Yep.
Yep. Is there a seconder? Yep. Councillor Klopka. All in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Motion's carried. Someone like to bring back the Deputy Mayor, please? And I will vacate this seat.
Thanks.
The hot seat.
Okay, so we'll go back to item 8, petitions. There are nil. Item 9, matters adjourned and laid on the table. There are nil. 10, public question time. And I believe the CEO has something to read out.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. We did receive 2 questions from our community for the public question agenda. Both matters relate to the proposed Alligator Energy Project, otherwise referred to as the Sandfire uranium trial. The questions and the answers will be recorded in the minutes. So I'm going to read out the questions and read the response. They are relatively long, but in the days of recorded council meetings, I think it's important that for the benefit of people coming back to see this event after the event, that they get the question and answer. So the first question come through from Andrea Williams. The question was, are councillors aware of the potential risk of contamination of surface water and pastoral dams from the field trials, referring to the Alligator Energy field trials, and have councillors had time to read the 160-page report? Will groundwater quality after the trial be subject to independent review? In receiving both these questions, I referred the questions to Alligator Energy, and Alligator Energy's response is as follows. During the field recovery trial, FRT, all fluids from the in situ well field are contained within sealed pipelines to the pilot processing plant with pressure sensors and automatic leak detection installed on all lines. The saline groundwater solution from the wells containing the low-grade uranium enters the pilot plant and is fully contained in the ion exchange columns, in simple person's term, tanks, where the uranium is removed. The uranium is recovered to a clean LU8, not familiar with that word myself, solution, which is then stored in large Bushman's tanks on surface. The entire processing plant, including the large storage tanks, are contained in a sealed, bunded area. Uranium-bearing fluids are not in contact with the land surface during the planned operations. The planned system of operation has been reviewed with the landowner and an area of operations has been agreed. The retention lease application document has potential impact events considered in the risk assessment process, and control and management measures are considered for groundwater and surface water on pages 126 to 132. The resulting proposed legally enforceable measurable outcomes criteria for ground and surface waters are also in this section. In terms of independent reviewing, all water, both surface and grounds, quality and actions are reviewed independently by the Department of Environment and Water and the EPA prior to operational approval. Once the retention lease activities begin, the Department of Energy and Mines monitor and review all water parameters. To aid in understanding the FRT proposed operations, a number of Whyalla Council elected members toured the drilling operations and proposed FRT site on Sunday, the 27th of August, 2023. Second question was from Karen Bolton. The question is it fair to assume that the residents of Whyalla have the ability to read and understand the contents of the retention lease proposal in a manner which enables sufficient comprehension of the identified risks and considerations related to this proposal and any ongoing potential future developments, mining applications and business? And in consideration, what alternative and independent information / consultation and analysis have councillors as representatives of the community sourced in order to enable full and thorough review and consultation without bias? Again, the response from Alligator Energy, noting that that question was in part more to the council, which I'll come back to in a minute, is that the retention lease document is constructed according to the requirements of the Department of Energy and Mining. The proposal outlines the identified risks in Chapter 8 and the environmental impact assessment. Alligator Energy held public meetings and open sessions in Whyalla in December 2022 and January 2023 to provide early and clear information to the Whyalla community regarding the FRT plans. These were designed to explain clearly the plans for FRT operations and rehabilitation, with the ability for attendees to ask questions. A number of government bodies have been consulted in developing the retention lease proposal, including the SA Environmental Protection Authority, the South Australian Department of Environment and Water, South Australian Department of Energy and Mining, the Australian Radiation Protection and Nuclear Safety Agency, and the Federal Department of Climate Change, Energy, the Environment and Water. South Australian government departments will be independently reviewing the RL proposal. The Whyalla Council are also able to contact or communicate with these organisations, including, regarding questions from constituents. Department of Energy and Mines can be contacted by any member of the public for information about the Mining Act processes. The Department of Energy and Mining website clearly outlines the process for approvals in SA and can be found at relevant web link. In terms of the specific question, which is have council secured or sourced independent information to enable full and thorough review and consultation. This matter is actually under the jurisdiction of the state government and is currently going through that process. So council is not the planning or regulatory body in this regard. However, obviously plays a key role in terms of being representatives of the community and being able to address any community concerns. The particular concerns raised in relation to potential environmental impact in terms of water quality. I have looked at the information that is on the Department of Energy and Mining website. It is comprehensive. If councillors want to do that, it is a public document, and the whole purpose of it being on that site is to give the public every opportunity to have a look at the information that the regulators and the or entity that will be providing the approval process will be afforded that opportunity and be able to make representations there too. For councillors' benefit and the community's benefit, the current process, which is consulting regarding the proposed arrangements, does close on Wednesday, the 20th of September, so a couple of days' time.
Thank you, CEO. Next, we have item 11, council members' activities. So up on the screen now, just scanning through. Would any elected members like to speak to anything that they've attended over the last month? No?
Perhaps while talking about alligator energy, those of us who went out there were pretty impressed with their openness and their willingness to show us everything that was going on. There's nothing concealed, nothing hidden. It was all up front on display.
Thank you very much, Councillor Simpson. CEO.
If I may, I did forget to mention, but with the benefit of that extra comment, it gives me a second opportunity. The Alligator Energy said that they are very, very supportive and keen to talk to anyone that's got any concerns. So in addition to that response to these the questions from the public, we will also connect those individuals with Alligator Energy so that they can be able to speak with them firsthand and get any further information that they may wish to obtain from the proponent.
Thank you. No other questions. We'll move on to item number 12, committee reports, which there are nil. And item 13, reports. Council officers, 13.1.1, Chief Executive Officer's Action Report. So I'm sure everyone's having a good chance to have a look through. Can I please have somebody move that? No, CEO would like to chat to that first.
Do you first want to ask if there's any questions?
Are there any questions for the CEO regarding his action report? Councillor Inglis?
I'm going to move it. Yeah.
Councillor Knox?
I've just got a couple of questions. The meetings with Martin Hazy and Renniscore and HDF Energy, anything that can be reported from those?
Yep, thank you, Councillor. And what I did want to just mention before this gets moved and seconded is that through the CEO's performance review process, one of the bits of feedback that I got from the elected member group through that process was that a lot of my activities are not, councillors don't get line of sight to at present. So similar to what the Mayor does in terms of providing a list of engagements, I've now included, as part of the CEO's report, information about various meetings and particularly external meetings that I'm undertaking so that councillors have got that awareness. In relation to those couple of items, so the meeting with Martin Hazy was in relation to a potential development opportunity. Martin Hazy currently has a role with the state government to support the state's trade and investment interests. Through that process, Mr. Hazy is meeting with and speaking to a number of overseas companies about what's happening across the state, and for good reason, obviously, for everyone in this room. Whyalla now is coming up in more and more of those conversations. So Mr. Hazy shared with us some of his some of the discussions he's having and some of the interest that is coming from abroad, particularly around obviously hydrogen and renewable energy, and how that also might feed into potential development interests in and around our city from overseas companies. So that was that one. In terms of Renascor, meeting with Renascor was to, one, just to get a bit of an update on how that project's progressing, noting it's just to the south of our city. For the benefit of councillors who may not be aware, that is for the mining of graphite, the transportation of that graphite from their facilities to the south through to a processing facility at Bolivar, where it gets processed, and then it's moved from Bolivar to Port Adelaide for export purposes. The reason for reaching out to Renascor is that if you think about the number of truck movements, heavy vehicles moving graphite, which is a very fine product, is going to be quite extensive as that operation continues to expand and grow over coming years, given the international demand for graphite as a product. So it was to get an update. It was to explore what discussions Renascor has been having in terms of how it's going to conduct its operations, and particularly the movement of product, and to ask the obvious question: is there an alternate way of being able to process that graphite in region and potentially export it from in region, as opposed to trucking it all the way around the Gulf to Bolivar? So it was a good discussion, some opportunity for some further engagement around that subject, noting that they're obviously still gearing up for their future operations. It was the third company that you called out? HDF. Yeah, so the meeting with HDF, HDF have got interest in terms of hydrogen and renewable energy projects in and around our region. So it was to get an update from them in terms of what some of their interests may be, and to have a two-way share of information about how those interests may align with what may be of interest to our city. So it was really just an exploratory type discussion to see where the interests may align.
Any other questions for the CEO before we have that moved? No, so we have a mover with Councillor Inglis. Can I have a seconder for that, please? Thank you, Councillor Simpson. All in favour? That's carried. Thank you. And I'd just like to say, CEO, I know it's a little bit more extra work, but it's very much appreciated. And I think it gives the elected members an opportunity of asking those extra questions, and also shows us how busy you are. So thank you. 13.1.2, Economic Development Strategy, Action Plan Progress Report. Do we have any questions? Councillor Knox?
Just wanted to know what is the process going forward for reviewing the actions, etc. It seems to me it's pretty important and almost something that we should review maybe quarterly.
Thank you, and through the chair. So yes, agree that we need to review them on an ongoing basis. As the report emphasises, the document, or the action plan in particular, is meant to be very much a fluid document, and will change over the course of its planning horizon, which is 8 years out through to 2030. So as opportunities come forward and change over time, there will be different drivers or interests in terms of where we apply some focus. My initial reaction is quarterly might just be a little bit too frequent, but if the council wants a quarterly report, happy to provide that. We've now set up the report, and we'll be able to update it on an ongoing basis, whether that's quarterly or 6 monthly. The other thing that we need to work through is with council rejoining the RDA EP. Some of the activities that are listed within that strategy document, the RDA will have a role to play. We've had our initial startup meeting with the RDA off the back of council's last month's resolution to rejoin formally. So we had that meeting about a week or so ago, and that will just take a little bit of time to work through what role the RDA plays in terms of progressing some of those. So very happy to have regular reporting. I'm in councillors' hands as to frequency. If council wants it quarterly, happy to provide it quarterly.
Thank you. Councillor Porter.
Thank you. And just wanted to acknowledge, as a relative newcomer to local government, the level of how you're able to encapsulate things in this report. I really appreciate that personally. And I want to segue that compliment into taking the community on the journey. And on 38, I've been involved with council since November last year. And there's a point here, the role of council is diverse and complex. I think that's a massive understatement. And to see every month the effort that is gone to, the level of detail that we are provided, I wish that the community could come on that journey with us. I know that most people won't. It's a lot of effort to stay up to date. But whatever we could do to give the community that information to say, here are the range of services that we are dealing with on an ongoing basis, I think could be hugely beneficial for the community and for the council as well.
CEO.
If I may, just Councillor Knox called out 3 meetings. There was another one that was interesting, and joining the 2 agenda items. Within our economic development strategy, we have the opportunity of the decommissioning, salvage and recovery of ships, potentially using the Whyalla port. I was really tempted while GFG was here to ask a question around that, but because of their focus tonight and the short period of time, I didn't go there. But we actually have a company who is actually looking to undertake those activities actually at the port. It's something that's, 12 months ago, the council identified this as a potential idea that we wanted to pursue. We've now, because that's actually become live with this company actually looking to put in an application to the federal government to progress that opportunity, that's a good example of where something that's listed in an 8-year forward plan has now been activated, and there will be some energy and resources put around that, given that that's now come onto the boil. And noting that GFG mentioned earlier tonight that with their future steelmaking opportunities, the ability to use scrap steel, and I think his statement was wherever they can get scrap steel from at present, they will take. Hopefully that provides an opportunity going forward for an emerging or new niche activity within our city.
Thank you. Can I please get someone to move that? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Knox. Second, Councillor Porter. And all in favour? That is carried. Thank you. 13.2.1. The sale of property under section 184. Do we have any questions regarding this item? Councillor Porter?
I was moving it, sorry.
You were moving that?
No,
Councillor Knox?
Seconded.
And second, thank you. All in favour? Thank you. 13.2.2, the monthly budget report for August. Do we have any questions on this item? No, can I have somebody please move it? Thank you, councillor Border. Second, councillor Westerman. All in favour? Carried, thank you. 13.2.3, rating of universities. Any questions? No, it's good. All of these reports have got a lot of information in them, which is great. So can I please have somebody move and
To
second?
make a point. I think,
Councillor Knox.
I think it's fair in respect to the capital city universities. But I think in order to give encouragement to regional universities should be exempt from that. That's just my thoughts.
Take that as no.
Did you want a response to that statement, councillor, or?
I'm just trying to think of some wording. I haven't got the whole thing in front of me here, but just in terms of the I've got that bit here. Yeah. Amending the Local Government Act to make capital cities universities liable for paying full rates. Those words are included in Part B. Amending the Local Government Act to make capital city universities liable for paying full rates. I've moved that way.
Just before you do, if I may, that second amendment there was around changing the Local Government Act as it applies or otherwise to universities. I would suspect that the Local Government Act, maybe we've got the City of Adelaide Act. I'm just trying to think of the implications because within the legislation, I don't know if the legislation would be able to necessarily call out based on locality as opposed to land use an exemption. So I might just ask Kathy an initial reaction to that one.
This is for feedback into the local government association, and it would potentially be, I mean, the Local Government Act could carve out metropolitan Adelaide universities as requiring to pay rates, but bearing in mind, I mean, that would then be feedback into the local government association. So you could ask that the local government association explore whether or not the Local Government Act could be amended to apply only to universities in South Australia's capital city.
Well, in that case, add a Part C that the Local Government Association be asked whether it is possible to have the rating applicable to capital city universities only, or the City of Adelaide universities only. Yeah. Not Australia-wide, it's just Adelaide.
If I may say that in leading up that, in the summary, it does say that the council has a provision for the ability to rebate the rates up to 100%. So it does restrict, we can change what we rate our university at.
That's what I was going to say, that it does have a provision in there for councils to not choose to charge rates or to rebate them. Yeah.
This report has been written on the basis of Councillor Border's motion without notice at the last council meeting. The LGA have already made a submission into the government in relation to this, and feedback wasn't being sought in relation to that submission. So
seeking the LGA to change their submission can't happen because that submission has already gone in, albeit we could still write to the LGA requesting that the LGA make a further submission if they so chose.
Given that the horse is bolted, I'll withdraw C.
Theo?
Yeah, I think someone already intimated that even if the LGA was successful and the current exclusion for universities was removed from the Local Government Act so that they then became responsible for paying rates, our council could still provide a rebate to support the ongoing provision of university services in our council and not for the current council, our campus not to be subject to rates. So council still ultimately has that control in terms of whether you wanted to collect rates from the university or not within the broader context.
Councillor Simpson?
I'm seconding the motion. Okay.
So Councillor Borders moving. Theo?
I think it's important that we don't lose the intent of what Councillor Knox was trying to achieve. So I'm wondering whether we have a second resolution, which is that whether it's either council ourselves or council through the LGA explore the merits of an exemption applying to regional-based university campuses.
I'm happy to move that as a separate resolution when that was being dealt with.
Thank you, Councillor Knox. Just get the wording right.
I just say, I don't think it needs it. It says in the summary that this council can change, we can rebate up to 100% on what rates are.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to ask Kathy to help with the wordsmithing, but the point is that if you look at council's resolution, the formal resolution on here is that we fully support the LGA's position, which is to remove the exemption. That's a black and white statement, and which is inconsistent with the matter that Councillor Knox raised, which is should our council look at applying rates to universities if we had the opportunity or not. In the absence of a resolution to at least explore that, if you look at the resolution that's on our books, is that we're fully supporting the LGA's submission. So the question is whether the council has the will to, and the intent that Councillor Knox has raised, which is that we ask for the LGA, or we do further work ourselves to explore whether an exemption should be granted to university campuses in regional locations. And on that note, I'll just give Kathy one crack to come up with some potential words.
Well, I was going to make a suggestion that we have a mover and a seconder for the original motion. The choice here procedurally is to put that motion to the vote, and then at the time of motions without notice, that Councillor Knox's motion gets considered, and we can consider some wording at that time, or a motion with notice could come to the next council meeting from Councillor Knox, and we can work out some wording in the intervening period. So procedurally, that could be the options moving forward.
Can we withdraw a proposal?
Sorry?
Can we withdraw a nomination, a second or a proposal?
Or what we can do is, with the leave of the mover and the seconder, add a third point to this motion along those lines. So procedurally, just looking to check on the council's will. If procedurally you want to add an item 3 to this, and the mover and the seconder are in agreement for that to be added, that can happen, or Councillor Knox could move an amendment.
Councillor Knox, would you be happy to put this forward as a motion without notice?
If the mover and the second are happy to add it, that's not needed. It's a question of whether they want to do that or not.
Okay, so in the councillor Border and was it councillor Simpson second? So are you happy to have an extra part added to this resolution?
In essence, no, I don't think it should go, but I would like to see the process of it going through, and then do I have a chance to speak against it to say kind of irrelevant in my opinion? I'm not sure of that process.
Procedurally, if it is, given the motion has already been moved and seconded, it would have to be with the consent of the mover and the seconder for an item, a third item to be placed on there. If you're saying no, you do not consent, then the meeting needs to consider items as it is written up there. Councillor Knox will then have the option to bring a motion without notice at that relevant point in this meeting, along the lines in terms of to express his sentiments as to exploring, for council to explore with the LGA the potential for the application of rating exemptions to regional universities. So in the intervening period between now and when that item comes up in the agenda, I'm very happy to work on some wording and for council to consider it in that way. And that way then that will allow you, Councillor Border, to speak for or against it, depending on what you would like to do. But this motion then stays as it is.
Okay, so if you're not happy to change that, Councillor Border, we will leave it as it is. And Councillor Knox, we will come back to that as a motion without notice. So the resolution standing as it is, which is part A and B, we have a first and a seconder. All in favour? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, 13.2.4, the civic building demolition options. Do we have any questions? We're happy to proceed with this one. Do we have a first of someone to move? Councillor Todd, second, Councillor Campbell. No questions? No, all in favour? Thank you, carried. 13.3.1, the Northern Water Supply Project. Do we have any questions regarding this item? Councillor Todd. That was from before. Councillor Campbell's was from before. Councillor Knox.
I'm just a bit concerned. I can see the merits in Cape Hardy, even though I'd like to see the employment in our area. The gulf does narrow as you go up it, and obviously there's a much higher exchange of water down at Cape Hardy than there is here. However, what I'm a little bit concerned about, does it in any way influence the location of the hydrogen plant and the hydrogen fueled power station?
CEO.
Short answer is I believe no.
Good short answer. That's right. Okay, there's no other questions. Do we have someone happy to move and second that? Councillor Border moving, Councillor Westerman second. All in favour? That is carried. Thank you. And then we have 13.4.1. So it's our city infrastructure. The City of Whyalla Path and Trail Master Plan. Any questions? Councillor Knox.
Just a comment. I'm delighted that this is now at least getting some runs on the board. I first raised it over 9 years ago, and it's just starting to move, which I'm delighted about that.
That's good to hear. Any other questions?
I've got a comment. I don't know how to phrase it. The section at the Hyson Trail. The Hyson Trail? when you're driving up that way, there's no trail. There's a sign saying Ison Trail, there's no trail.
Right.
Mayor Stone has photographs. I'll bring it up again at some stage in the future, but it's a sign, but no trail.
Take that on notice.
I don't think the Hyson Trail comes into our area.
I know,
But it's Brenda's, right?
I think Councillor Simpson may be referring to the Freyson, not the Hyson, Freyson, the Freycenate, or whatever.
Okay. So if there's no other questions, we'll get that moved and second. Anyone happy to do that? Councillor Todd moving, Councillor Campbell second. All in favour? Thank you. Then we have 13.4.2, the Nicholson Avenue Education Precinct Speed Review. Councillor Knox.
Just a comment, I'd like to commend the staff for their promptness in moving with this. It is an important issue for our community, so thanks to everybody that participated in the work.
Well said. Any other questions?
Happy to move it.
Thank you. Councillor Knox has moved. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Border. All in favour? That is carried. Thank you. 14.4.3, the Whyalla Childcare Centre Audit Remedial Actions. Any questions? No. Can I have someone please move that? Thank you, Councillor Todd. Second, Councillor Border. All in favour? That is carried. Thank you. 13.4.4, the Whyalla Recreation and Leisure Centre upgrade. That is a late item that was just added this afternoon. Any questions? No. Can I have a mover for that? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Border. Second, Councillor Campbell. All in favour? That is carried. Thank you. Information and decision reports. So 14.1, we have a list of Mayor Stone's engagements for the month. Does anyone have any questions? We can try and answer it. He's not here, but we can try.
I have one question.
Councillor Knox.
The meeting with the Housing Trust, are there any outcomes from that at all?
CEO.
I don't think there was any specific action items that come out of the meeting. Part of the purpose of the meeting was to confirm that SAHA have got planned investment in our city, including both new builds as well as some refurb of existing buildings. That the state government is actively looking at trying to invest in social housing, so one was to confirm that they're doing that, and the second part was to probably get some feedback from us regarding some of the localised challenges that we've got in terms of delivering of housing, particularly at significant scale. So it was a good conversation, but they didn't come with a particular purpose other than just to share with us what their current plans are. Sorry? Yeah. It was also interesting, just from my perspective, that in addition to two members from SAHA, which was the CEO and the chair of the SAHA board, they also had the chair of the State Planning Commission also attend that. So I think it is very clear to all and sundry that getting housing, more houses, whether it's social housing, affordable housing, or houses just full stop, into our state is important, and particularly in regional localities like ours. So I think it was good that the chair of the State Planning Commission and also the chair of SAHA heard some of our real life experiences in terms of some of those challenges of facilitating and enabling housing development in region to occur. noting that they know some of those experiences themselves in terms of trying to do their own work is costly and time consuming to get things done in regions.
Thank you. So can I have somebody please move and second our Mayor's list of engagements? Thank you, Councillor Border. Second, Councillor Knox. All in favour? Thank you. Carried. And then we have 14.2.1, our monthly information reports. Again, we're getting some amazing information about what our council staff have been up to and all the different jobs that they do around town, showing how busy that they've been kept. Do we have any questions regarding this report? Councillor Border.
Just a comment that, yeah, like you said, it is really good to see. And I keep seeing the name Dakota because that name sticks out in a sentence. But she started with the traineeship and then she's continuing on with the council. That just sounds like a really cool success story of what the council is doing, literally in helping keep growing our own. So yeah, just well done. And I don't know how we use that, you know, as a sign to the community or inspiration to the community of look at what is possible, you know, literally through the council as an employer. So awesome to see.
Absolutely, I agree with that. The amount of young people that we've had coming through our traineeship programs have been fantastic. Okay, so if we don't have any further questions on that item, can I please have somebody move and second that? Thank you, Councillor Border. Second, Councillor Westerman. All in favour? Thank you, carried. Item 15, notions of notice, on notice. We have nil. 16, questions on notice. We have a couple. So we have one there from Councillor Klobuchar.
Yeah, I don't require them to be read out.
Lovely, thank you. So you've got your answer there as well. You're happy with that? And 16.2, we've got the Department of Defence, which was a question from Councillor Knox. Councillor Knox, are you happy with that?
It's the sort of response you expect from Defence. So yeah, it's not a great response. They don't tell you anything, but it's half of the course, I guess.
Thank you. CEO?
If I can just add to what was written there is that I approached Defence SA to get the advice. They've indicated that between Chief of Army and Minister for Defence, there's some discussion about who's sharing what information when. But one of the things that did come out was that the 7th Battalion and the 1st Armoured Regiment is not the only unit of the Army that may be subject to some potential change. So that's why I think it's more, it's a much broader issue than just that item, and that's why I think there's some further, if, you know, as Defence Chief and as Minister for Defence do, there's probably ongoing discussions around the future deployment of defence resources around the country. So I think someone managed to just preemptively get media story out about us, and before the official media release has, and probably the decision has been made.
Okay, moving on. Questions without notice. Councillor Inglis.
I have one. I don't know if anybody's aware, but the White Football League's women's competition kicked off Friday night. It was north of 1,100 people at Memorial Oval. The only complaint was, and Kristen's is the scoreboard, because Whyalla played Whyalla, and a lot of the phonics are missing. Very, very hard to read. And the Benedict scoreboard on the weekend for the men's grand final, nobody could read it. You couldn't tell what the score was, you couldn't tell how much time was left in the game, so you might need to look into that. But the Memorial Oval scoreboard in particular is going to be important. We've got Port Augusta team coming across to play, and you know there was over 1,000 people there on Friday night for the kick-off of this comp, and it's going to continue for the next 10 weeks. And having the scoreboard not operating is not ideal. So I don't know if it's a quick fix, hard fix, long fix, or expensive fix.
Through the Mayor, it's the first that I have heard of it, but yeah, we'll look into both scoreboards. Thank you.
Councillor Knox.
Sorry, just quickly, it's more important for Memorial Oval. That's a priority at this stage.
Got two quick ones. Some time ago, we had a report about some modifications which had been made to the old aerodrome hangar. I'm wondering if those issues have been addressed yet.
Might just take that question on notice in the absence of having that top of head. So
That's fine.
Yep.
The other one is on page 49 of the Trails report. It refers to the encroachment of the Mount Laura quarry on Mount Laura. Now, I think council, from memory, is the lessee. Well, council leases the quarry, and the quarry has to operate within defined boundaries. And council used to monitor those boundaries. Does council still monitor those boundaries? And if not, can council check those boundaries? I know this is essential for Whyalla, that we need the stone, but we also need to preserve Mount Laura as well.
Again, through the Mayor, we'll take that question on notice and get some information to councillors.
Thank you for those questions. Item 18, motions without notice. Councillor Knox.
The council write to the SA Regional Organisation of Councils in bracket SAROC, end of bracket, seeking exploration of the application of different rate exemption rebate approaches between Metropolitan Adelaide and regional universities.
Yeah.
Can you move that?
Thank you, Councillor Knox. Do we have someone who would like to second that? Or any CEO?
If we could just have the word campuses put on the end of that sentence, because yeah.
Thank you. You're happy with that wording, Councillor Knox? Yep. Councillor Todd?
At the risk of showing my ignorance, I'm not understanding why that's different to councils being able to rebate according to whatever they want in their region. Sorry.
DEO?
Through the Mayor, whilst the LGA has, as per the previous item that we discussed, put forward that the current exemption that universities currently receive from rates rebates should get struck out. The legislation does also talk to rebates that apply to different types of organisations or land uses. So churches, for example, schools, universities and the like. And there's a differentiation between those organisations that may receive a 25, a 75 or 100% rebate on their rates. So in redrafting the legislation, it may well be that there is some merit in the LGA looking at what exemptions could or should apply to those types of organisations and again, depending on whether they're in metropolitan Adelaide or regional locations. At the end of the day, unless that happens and it's prescribed in legislation that a particular ratepayer has gets a rebate that's prescribed by legislation, it will come back to council for council to make a local decision about what rebate you may apply. So what this is essentially seeking is for SAROC, which is representative of all of the non-metropolitan councils, to be involved in a discussion about the merits of having a place-based exemption arrangement put in place for campuses in regional locations, and it specifically says to explore that. It's not advocating one way or the other. It's to explore the merits of that being written into the regulations.
Okay, do we have someone who would like to second that? Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Any other discussion before we move on? Councillor Border?
Just to the initial motion to second or to add weight to what the LGA were already putting forward, the way I understand it, fundamentally universities have shifted their model from a community outcome more to a profit outcome. That's why I would like to show Whyalla support for that, given we have a University SA campus. Knowing that it's 24.5 grand or just under that Uni SA would have otherwise picked up that bill for, and that at the moment that rate burden is spread amongst the rest of the community. Unless, and I'm open to reviewing my position, but I just feel like until we can see a list of or outline of the information of the details of where the university is providing a community benefit that is community only, not that doesn't have a feedback into the university model, which would be part of their own costs anyway, or should be. I think, I'm just not sure. I think this goes against what the original motion was for.
Essentially, that analysis of what is the public benefit that universities provide versus what are they generating in terms of a commercial outcome would actually inform this decision about what rebate, if any, and what value could or should apply to regional campuses vis-a-vis university campuses. So essentially what you just said actually talks to this, which is let's get someone to do the work to actually quantify the costs and benefits of applying either rates and or a rate rebate to reflect the public value that can be determined to be provided by regional university campuses.
Councillor Knox?
If I speak, I close the debate. Does anybody else want to speak first?
Councillor Border?
Just to confirm, so that would, in other words, because I'm sort of what Councillor Todd has suggested of we have control anyway. So if it said, look, universities aren't going to be exempt, they do have to pay rates, we would then still have the opportunity to give a rate rebate if we felt like there was a big enough community benefit. So again, I sort of feel like we're in the box seat anyway, even if they are, I can't remember if it's not exempt or exempt. If they would be forced to pay rates, we would otherwise have the opportunity to rebate that. But if what you're saying there is that, well, SAROC can go and do the hard work or the legwork and bring what I'm asking for, which is that list of community benefits, then perhaps there is merit for it.
Councillor Knox?
I just didn't want to make, I wanted to make sure that local regional university campuses weren't linked in with the profit-making big city campuses. I would very much doubt whether the Whyalla campus and, say, the one in Port Augusta, and I think there's one in Mount Gambier as well now, would make any money at all. They were put in basically as a service by the university. So I just wanted to make sure we weren't caught up in the overarching thing from the LGA. But I'm also mindful of the fact that while we can grant rebates as a council, we're not compelled to grant those rebates. So you could get a council at some stage that says, no, we're not going to do that. And I think that would be bad because we need to encourage the universities to get out in the regions, get out of their ivory towers in Adelaide. We want them here.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, so we have a first and a seconder for that. All in favour? Carried. Thank you. Okay, before we move on to our confidential items, I would like to adjourn for 15 minutes, if that's all right with everyone. We'll get a first and a seconder for that, and we'll have something to eat. Thank you, councillor Westerman. Second, councillor Knox. All in favour? Thank you. So we'll be back here at about 8:10. Thank you. Okay, can I have someone please move that we move back into meeting procedures? Thank you, councillor Bilder. Second, councillor Simpson. All in favour? Thank you, carried. Okay. Now, can I please get a mover to move into confidence? Our next two items are in confidence. Thank you, councillor Westerman, and second, councillor Knox. All in favour? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for coming, everyone. We will close the meeting at 9:01. Sorry for the very long meeting. It was a bit all over the place, but we got through. And yes, keep a list of those upcoming meetings in mind. We've got quite a few, but thank you very much, everyone, and see you next week.